Winter's bite? The chill in the air enveloped Alex Amore, each breath creating a temporary heat vapor. The biting cold embedded itself into his chainmail, his thermals, and winter sweater he wore beneath, providing some reprieve. His insulated and self-warming leather gloves more effectively kept off the chill from his long sword and shield. He stood in a clearing of Elk Ridge Woods, the very woods that currently surround Elk Lake Summer Camp, a camp that was currently missing 5 camp counselors, a camp that was experiencing winter in the middle of July in Arizona. Normally, due to such extreme weather conditions, the camp would have been evacuated, but an avalanche kept the roads closed. No one was able to come in or get out. The only reason Alex had been able to gain access was through a teleportation spell cast by one of the Divine Region's arcanists. The Region had initially thought the Winter Fae Court was involved, but that theory was quickly dismissed. While the Winter and Summer Courts were at odds at the best of times, it would be unlikely for the Winter Court to make such a brazen attack against Summer, especially during the season of summer when they, the Winter Court, would be weaker. And the camp itself had no supernatural ties that the paladins were aware of. Regardless, a representative of the Winter Court had requested the paladins to investigate. The Divine Region agreed. Alex, along with 7 other paladins, had arrived 3 nights ago. 3 of the 8 paladins were dead. Alex heard the snapping of a distant twig ahead of him. He smiled, itching for a challenge. His target was approaching. His target wanted him to know it was approaching. Alex opened his senses. As a paladin, he was able to note the presence of sin from those close to him. He didn't hear them spring forward, but he wasn't surprised when the attack came from behind, the snapping twig an obvious ploy. Alex twisted around and braced his shield close to his body, already allowing himself to fall back into the snow. The creature slammed with a heavy thud into Alex and would have easily pinned him, but Alex, along with his backwards trajectory, tapped into the magic runes inscribed within his armor and shield. The rune strength magic enabled him to use the monster's own momentum against it and push it off, sending it rolling past him. Alex didn't hesitate. He quickly regained his feet, the shield set to block and the sword ready to strike. Alex swallowed, his grip tightening upon the hilt of his sword automatically. "Wendigo," he muttered under his breath. A monstrosity of greed, hunger, and rage, standing easily 10 to 12 feet tall. The creature was covered from its shoulders down in a thick coat of matted white fur stained with blood. Some spots were freshly red, but most were a dried rust color. Despite the thick coat of fur, it was evident the beast was sheer muscle and power. Similar to the matted fur, sharp, blood-stained antlers adorned the side of its deer skull head. The only contrast in its appearance was the skull itself, a pure white, completely untouched by gore or dirt. Oddly, its immaculate appearance somehow made the creature more unsettling. The Wendigo regained its footing and sprang forward. Alex altered the rune's magic and shifted from strength to reflexes. The monster thrashed and clawed, hoping to find purchase and rend Alex in two. But Alex remained moments ahead of the Wendigo, dodging each blow. The Wendigo reared back in frustration, clamping its 2 fists together, leaving a clear opening for its chest. Alex, smiling once more, altered the magic of his runes and infused his body with strength. He lunged his blade forward and through the Wendigo's chest, easily piercing the Wendigo's heart. The creature's flesh easily gave way to the sharpened edges of the Holy Avenger wielded by all paladins of the Divine Region, but its point found no heart to purchase itself upon. Sickening realization went through Alex then. This monster was unkillable, because the only way to wound and eliminate a Wendigo was to destroy its frozen heart. The Wendigo, in that moment of hesitation on Alex's part, had altered its attack and now grabbed Alex by the shoulders. He lifted the mighty paladin into the air. Its claws were digging into Alex's shoulders as they pierced through his armor. Alex struggled, but the magic of the runes had their limits. The soul runes fed off the wearer's life force. If Alex gave too much of himself at once, it would kill him, but it would appear that was about to happen regardless. "Shokyaku Suru, incinerate," commanded Irene. She focused her magic into a beam of flame, striking into the Wendigo's back. Its entire body was quickly consumed in fire. The Wendigo couldn't be killed, but it could still feel pain. Blinday's shield cast Dylan. His light magic encased Alex, becoming a protective barrier around him. While light magic was better suited against dark magic specifically, it offered protection against many arcane talents. The Wendigo threw Alex away and darted off into the deeper part of the woods, its screams of agony echoing behind it. Alex took steadying breaths before gingerly picking himself up. "Sunar, heal," said Dylan as he shifted his magic. The shield enveloping Alex altered to mend Alex's flesh before it dispersed into raw, formless energy. "Are you all right?" asked Irene as she and her twin brother approached. Alex began to regain his feet, Dylan helping to lift him up. Alex offered the light mage a nod before turning to the other firecaster. "I'm fine, thanks to you two." Irene and Dylan noted the hesitance in his voice, clearly appreciative of their help, but questioned where they came from. "I'm Irene, this is Dylan. We came from the camp. We just arrived," said Irene. "The roads are closed due to an avalanche," responded Alex, his face becoming more concerned. "Teleportation magic," said Dylan. "A friend of ours portaled us in. Same as your group. We're accompanying another friend who's been sent to investigate the unnatural disturbance to the current season." "We were told you had gone scouting in the woods and had been asked to retrieve you by Captain Holden," said Irene. Alex nodded. They knew the name of the paladin's leader, newly appointed leader. Former Captain Hark was one of the lost. "All right, we should be getting back then." Both Irene and Dylan nodded and started their way back when they each heard the screams of children mixed with monstrous bellows. The three of them shared a brief, concerned look before they tore off back to the camp. Heather had 2 jobs in Normal. The first was her flower shop. The second was blessing the outlying farm crops around the town. She literally used her divine connection to nature to enrich the soil. Neither of those jobs in any way required her to face off against supernatural, roided-up beasts of rage. But it was a Monday, so she shouldn't be that surprised. Thankfully, the cabins were made of actual logs, which granted Heather some semblance of power over them. Being the daughter of a former agriculture god did come with benefits. Tapping into her divine gift, she was able to reinforce the walls and doors to be as resistant as iron. Temporarily, at least. She was currently standing within the Moose Mess Hall with the remaining campgoers and staff, while 4 paladins, 2 covering each entrance, stood ready. Their armor, shields, and swords aglow, ready for anything that made its way in. "Any time now, you two," Heather muttered, as she wondered where Dylan and Irene were. The goal had been to figure out what caused this weird winter, fix the problem, and get back home. Per First Lady Penelope's request, the woman Heather called Mother. But as luck would have it, it wasn't just some freaky cold snap in the middle of summer. It was a cabal of Wendigos. Herd, gaggle, conglomeration. Heather forced herself to stop that trail of thinking. She was getting nervous, and when she got nervous, she would start focusing on the wrong thing. Repeated slamming continued outside as the beasts unleashed their fury upon the mess hall, at least 4 of them. With a sickening crunch, everyone looked up as they watched a chunk of the ceiling bow downward before fully giving way, and a Wendigo came crashing through. The 4 paladins, on reflex, rushed forward and began hacking and slashing with precise abandon. "Get to the kitchen now," ordered Heather. The 8 counselors corralled the many children and teens quickly, ushering them into the back of the mess hall, just as the Wendigo, despite its many injuries, started to regain its footing. Wendigos were formidable creatures, but it was clear that even this beast's resilience was unnatural. That's when Heather noticed it. The paladins had easily stabbed the beast a handful of times in the chest, but it was still standing. Surely, one of those blows should have pierced the Wendigo's heart. But it acted as if it had only received superficial wounds. "Hinotama, fireball." Relief flooded through Heather upon hearing Irene's spellcasting, a feeling which was only enhanced by the screams of the Wendigos still remaining outside. Thinking quickly, as the one Wendigo inside was distracted, she focused her power on the burning fireplace and ordered the paladins to get the Wendigo outside. The unit of 4 acted with perfect precision. 2 of them cleared the west side door and threw it open. The other 2, one of them being Captain Holden, dodged and weaved, striking at the Wendigo, causing it to shift closer and closer towards the door. At the last moment, Heather manipulated the flames, specifically the wood embers of the fire, to jettison out in a stream and pummel into the Wendigo's chest. The creature's matted and blood-encrusted fur caught like kindling, and the beast went tearing from the mess hall back into the woods. It was 2 hours later. Alex, Heather, Irene, and Dylan found themselves standing outside Cabin 18. After the 4 Wendigos had been chased off with fire and blade, and the 2 groups had compared notes, it was obvious that whoever summoned the Winter and the Wendigos would require a significant amount of power. Heather, thanks to her innate link to nature, took it upon herself to see if she could sense a direct source of energy that was causing the unnatural weather patterns. Specifics eluded her, but she had been able to determine a central source of energy coming from within the camp. A source they now stood outside of. "Per Camp Counselor Gregg, this cabin doesn't get used," said Dylan. "It doesn't appear to be in shambles," said Alex. "That's because they still keep it cleaned and repaired like any other cabin," said Irene. "This isn't a horror film." "We're literally stuck in a summer camp, in the middle of a snowstorm, surrounded by monsters that have very likely eliminated 8 people, said Heather dryly. "This is exactly like a horror film." Irene paused for a moment before relenting. "Touché." "It's probably trapped," warned Alex. "Blinde," Shield cast Dylan upon himself. "I'll go first then." He shoved open the door. The door itself was unlocked. 1 step in, then sure enough, a magic trap went off. A blast of raw arcane energy shot into his chest that threw him back 20 feet. He landed with a solid thud into a snowbank and tried to remember how to breathe. Had it not been for his ward, he most likely would have been added to the roster of the dead. As if answering an unheard summons, the 5 Wendigos released a screech of rage, each of them stepping out of the surrounding woods before they barreled towards the cabin. "That was unexpected," muttered Irene sarcastically, before calling forth her power. "Firewaru, firewall." A blazing wall of fire about 10 feet high sprang up around the cabin. The Wendigos abruptly halted as they took in the wall of licking flame before them. "Impressive," said Alex. "Less praise, more destruction," said Heather, grabbing Alex's arm and stepping into the cabin. "She can't hold a spell like that forever." The cabin was basic in design, 2 sets of bunk beds and 2 dressers. As it wasn't lived in, there was lacking decor and an untouched feel to the room. "Are you sure this is the place?" asked Alex as he knelt and checked under one of the beds. Heather threw open a door only to find an empty closet. "Yes," frustration evident in her voice. "Who would waste their time warding an empty cabin?" Alex grunted his acknowledgement. He then took a moment to open his senses and see if he could sense sin within his aura. He felt a pooling dread of wrath near the center of the cabin. He approached that area and looked straight down. "What?" asked Heather, noticing his focus upon the bare floor. "Beneath us," said Alex, allowing his focus to return fully. Heather knelt down and felt around the edges of the floorboards. Within short order, she felt a clear gap between 2 planks. She easily fit her fingers through and pulled upward. A good portion of the flooring lifted away, clearly false, as a ladder leading down into darkness resided before them. "Find anything?" Dylan asked, stepping into the doorway. His shield had allowed him to bypass his sister's firewall. Alex and Heather stepped back to show the opening. Dylan rolled his eyes. "Of course it's underground." Irene yelled from outside, "Guys, I don't know how much longer I can hold this. I'll help my sister, you 2, get down there and end this." Dylan turned back outside and linked hands with his sister. While he wasn't an elemental mage, he could still feed his sister power. The strain on her face relaxed. "They have to go underground. We'll have to hold it a bit longer," said Dylan. Irene nodded, and then, focusing her power, she reshaped the large circle into 5 smaller ones, entrapping each Wendigo within their own personal prison, Smaller cages will be easier to maintain and make sure none of them run off, explained Irene. Dylan just nodded. Heather trailed behind Alex, who insisted on taking point and was guiding their way, acting as a human lantern as the runes engraved within his armor and shield emanated a soft glow around them. In short order, they found themselves in a small earthen chamber. A pentagram was crudely etched into the earth, and at each pentacle sat a frozen heart resting in a clear glass jar. Within the pentagram itself sat a young girl no more than 16 years old. Beads of sweat rolled down her forehead despite the chill within the room. Her nose was slightly bleeding, her face scrunched up and focused, but clearly in pain. Alex, seizing the opportunity, took his shield within both hands and smashed it down upon the nearest jar. The jar shattered, but the frozen heart within remained unharmed. The young woman was unfazed by Alex's actions. Alex, perplexed, made to stab the heart, his sword deflected off as if hitting a solid block of ice. Clearly the hearts had been warded against physical attack. Heather picked up the frozen heart, gingerly avoiding the broken shards of glass. Her hands, upon touching it, went completely numb. The heart was so cold it burned. Once she released the heart, the pain receded. It was as if immediate frostbite had gripped her entirely, and had she held on much longer, she may have suffered irreversible damage. She turned to the next heart, still within a jar, and wrapped her hands around the heart's container, only to feel the same experience. She yanked her hands free and looked at Alex questioningly. "Irene," stated Alex, "she can destroy them with her fire." "What about the girl?" asked Heather. "Dylan," Alex responded, "shields the girl with his magic." Heather shook her head. "They're almost out of power by now, and how can the two of us hold off 5 Wendigos while they rush down here?" Alex could only shrug. Before he left, he tried to enter the pentagram and retrieve the young woman. Maybe by freeing her it would stop everything, or at least weaken the magic. But he was stopped by an invisible force. The runes upon his armor flared once, and he felt a minor protection charm wash over him. Had it not been for the runes, he would have been blasted backwards, like Dylan had been earlier. He could already feel the runes straining to keep him safe and quickly stepped away from the pentagram. Alex turned to Heather again, who was now smiling. "What?" he asked. Heather sat upon the ground, placing her hands upon the earth and opening her gift. "We're at a nexus." "Are you certain?" asked Alex. Heather nodded. "This is powerful magic, something way beyond a 16-year-old girl." Heather opened herself up to the raw energy around them. "This is the source of energy I was sensing before, not the spell it's currently channeling into." "So you can tap into the power and use it, or sever the link the girl has?" asked Alex. Heather shook her head. "No, I'm not an arcane user. My talents aren't magical, but I am connected to the earth through my divine heritage, benefits of being the daughter of a retired goddess." "So what can you do then?" asked Alex, not yet connecting the dots. "I can act as a conduit for the power." She tilted her chin to the girl, "just like she is. Or at least I assume that's the role she's playing." Realization hit Alex then. "You're going to supercharge Irene and Dylan?" "You too," said Heather. She was finally making contact with the ley line. "The power is raw and unshaped, meaning I should be able to impact the magic of your runes too." Alex smiled at that before he turned and headed back up. "I'll warn the other two," he called. "Stay close to the cabin," Heather yelled back. "Stray too far away and I won't be able to sense your location." Arcane exhaustion was setting in. Both Irene and Dylan were at their power's limits. They would need to eat and rest soon. If Alex and Heather didn't figure out how to eliminate the Wendigos soon, it would be lights out. "We found the Wendigo hearts, but we can't destroy them ourselves," said Alex as he rushed outside the cabin, "but Heather has a backup plan." "Meaning what exactly?" asked Irene, her voice strained. "You and Dylan will have to do it," said Alex. "Me," said Dylan, confusion marring his fatigued features. "There's a young girl trapped near the hearts," continued Alex. "I couldn't get to her. She's within a warded pentagram. You'll have to shield her from your sister's magic while she destroys the hearts." "I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but both Dylan and I are all but tapped out," said Irene. She was currently struggling to stand, and the Wendigos could apparently sense the fading power entrapping them. They were getting more and more restless. "Heather's tapping into a nexus ley line now," Alex said, drawing his blade and setting his shield. "That's why I came back up to warn you." Warn us about..." Dylan didn't get a chance to finish before he and Irene were flooded with raw arcane power. It was staggering how they both went from all but completely tapped out to literally overflowing with arcane energy. Irene, losing her focus, allowed the firewalls to drop. The Wendigos wasted no time and charged forward. Alex rushed 2 of them. As promised, his runes were also humming with power. Normally, he would only have one ability activated at once. But for the first time in his life, he had strength, reflexes, and warding working in perfect unison. He was dodging, weaving, and striking with speed, grace, and power. In short order, he took off one Wendigo's head and the other one's arm at the elbow. Neither of them acted bothered, beyond trying to find their missing limbs and reattach them. It was a bit comical that Alex actually found himself laughing. Dylan didn't even need to utter a word. He simply created a perfect protection ward around him and Irene, as the 3 remaining beasts closed in on both of them. Irene merely raised her hands, and 3 columns of fire rose up from the ground and incinerated the Wendigos with such intensity that Dylan and she both shielded their eyes. The Wendigos had literally been cooked alive. As a matter of fact, they were clearly still alive. More importantly, they were healing. Quickly, despite the massive extent of their injuries. Alex called Irene as she and Dylan shared a knowing look and rushed to the cabin. Alex's humor at the situation had quickly disappeared in short order. The injured Wendigos had seemed less and less bothered by his weapon as they slowly acclimated to the wounds, healing faster and faster after each hit. Alex in turn delivered 2 successive strikes, one to each of the Wendigo's legs, before he retreated to the cabin, hoping to hobble them for a short time. Irene took that opportunity to incinerate the 2 remaining Wendigos before they recovered from their leg wounds, resulting in all 5 of the beasts being put down, temporarily at least, until they eliminated the hearts. Dylan and Alex were already making their way through the trapdoor and down the ladder as Irene shut the cabin door and made her way after them. Heather felt off. She was interfering with power she didn't truly understand. She wasn't a being of magic, and the power she was diverting through herself to others felt unclean, as if it were trying to change her in some fundamental way. But if she released the energy now, she would leave the other 3 defenseless. Try as she might, Heather couldn't break the river of power coursing through the pentagram. She could tap into the source of raw energy, but nothing more. In truth, it was her divine connection to the earth itself that even allowed her to accomplish what she was doing. "Hello, godchild," said the young girl within the pentagram. Heather focused her attention on the girl. One thing was immediately evident. It wasn't the girl who was speaking to her, but a demonic entity. The eyes were a black void of nothing, which was a pretty evident sign of possession. "And you are?" asked Heather. The girl smiled. "I grant wishes," said the voice. It was a mixture of both the girls and the demons. Heather found it unsettling, to say the least. Demons don't grant wishes. "Oh, we demons possess many talents," said the entity. "Our methods are just a bit more colorful." Heather regarded the demon coolly. "I doubt the young girl wished for whatever this is." "Magic always comes with a price," the demon shrugged. A barrier of light encased both Heather and the girl. Within moments, each Wendigo heart was encased in a sphere of arcane flame. The Wendigo's screams of suffering echoed around the chamber as if the beasts actually stood within the cave itself. Each heart was reduced to charcoaled embers within moments. To Heather's surprise, the demon didn't scream. No rage or anger crossed the girl's features. It was as if the demon itself was unbothered. She merely sighed as she took in Alex, Irene, and Daniel as they stepped into the chamber. The smile returned to her face once more. "We'll meet again soon, children." With that, the demon slipped her conscience out of the girl, causing the girl to collapse to the ground unconscious. Daniel's shield spell protected her head as it hit the ground. Irene, being a true arcane wielder, tapped into the link Heather had established and was able to divert the power of the ley line away from the pentagram, freeing the young girl and ending the abnormal weather. It had been a week since the incident. Dylan and Irene were back working at their mother's bakery, the Witch's Brew. Alex and the other paladins had returned to their regency. Heather was recovering at her parents' mansion. Her mother, while understanding, was less than pleased at her daughter's reckless choice to interfere with a ley line. Despite feeling normal health-wise, Heather could sense something was off, like a whisper in the back of her mind she couldn't understand, but could feel. It was clear the ley line had affected her. Infected may be more accurate. But again, she couldn't pinpoint what was off, just that it wasn't an illness. The young woman, Jenny, being held captive within the pentagram, had stolen an arcanum book of power from her father's library. She hadn't meant any harm. She just wanted summer camp to end early. Her actions and the spell she cast had acquired the attention of a demon. Said demon had claimed to be a fairy godmother who had helped Jenny acquire the ingredients needed to complete the winter spell. Needless to say, the 5 missing counselors had been found after the destruction of the 5 frozen hearts, each of them missing one vital organ. The confirmation of the demon cleared the Fey Winter Court of any wrongdoing. Jenny herself was now in custody of the Paladin Order to be processed for her crimes, unintentional as her actions may have been. And the question remained, who and where was the demon now?